All right. Well, ma'am, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And the topic of interest today is acquisition demonstration project, and specifically the decision to remove tiers from within AcqDemo and go into a career guide model. So if we could get started, just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your career field and maybe a little on your background in government service.
Sure. So first for everybody, my name's Markman. I'm the senior functional for COS, Cyber Operations Support for C3INN. And I'm located up at Hanscom Air Force Base. And really, when I look back at my career, it's a wonderment that I got to where I am today. I mean, I'll tell you, when I finished my undergraduate degree, I really wanted to do something different. I wanted to make a difference. So I joined the Peace Corps. And I ended up in West Africa. And to be honest, I was supposed to do appropriate technology. Sounded great to me. So they sent me up country. I got to the area that the region I was going to support. And what I discovered is there was no water or no electricity, no power, no computers, no phones. Wow, I thought technology, this isn't what I expected for technology. So I had to stop and rethink, what does this mean? And to be honest, when I think about my experience, our current PEO leader, General Schmidt, he has a little vision that he talks about and saying, which is deliver, innovate, and grow. And my experience in Peace Corps, when I look back now, I realized I was already living his concept of dig in. So I had to really figure out, what was I going to deliver when I was going to deliver something different than I expected. And so I looked at what was the mission and what were the requirements. And it really had to do with water and food. So then I had to innovate. How was I going to possibly do that? So I really looked at school lunch programs, and really getting water into the schools, and getting somebody there to cook and getting foods provided. And I had to grow. I had to figure out how to get different partners to make that happen. It wasn't just going to be me who was going to have that happen out there. And so, I realized right away, it doesn't always work out quite like you think. I know when I got back and I finished my graduate degree, I was working in small IT startup companies and doing that. And I decided, wow, I got a lot from this country. I really want to do service. I want to give back for everything I got. And the Peace Corps really helped me realize I changed, right? I recognized how much we have here. And that's when I joined the federal government and really got started. And I came in under the GS system. And to be honest, coming from industry into the government, I had no idea what GS meant. And to the steps, that was totally confusing. What's this 1 through 10 thing, and how does that really work? Right. So, I put in my time, just trying to do, I think, again, what General Schmidt did: focus on the mission, make sure I was innovating, right? Coming up with new ways to do it, better ways to do it, smarter ways to do it. And then also growing, making sure I was learning, evolving, keeping up with technology. In our career field in COS, there's a lot of different categories that we really have, and some of us call them shreds. But we have 11 different areas that we can work in. And just as a couple examples, you could be a software developer in our area. You could do databases. You could do strategic policy planning. So network operations. So we really have a wide array of what we do in our career field. And that means each of us has to really look at ourselves for development and how we grow. And I know, that's one of the things that as I moved along in my career field, I tried to do. And, I've been a comm group director. So I've worked on the operational side and I work on the acquisition side. So for me, I've really gotten that experience kind of across the range of what we do in the Air Force. And in each of those instances, I've always been reminded it's about the mission, what we contribute to that mission. It's about making sure that we're doing it in the smartest way possible and that we're staying on top of that curve for understanding what new technologies and what new capabilities we can deliver to the warfighter.
So, ma'am, you mentioned evolution, and this move, some have termed the change in AcqDemo to remove tiers, is kind of a natural evolution of this program. So, talk to us a little bit about why you think now is the right time to remove the tiers, and also what is the importance of replacing them with career guides? Why do we really need career guides?
So I think when we started into AcqDemo, one, we were looking for a way to really get after the concept of contribution, right? What does it mean to contribute to the mission? And how do we really measure that and get people focused on that? So not so much about, am I moving up my steps, but more onto the concept of, am I contributing to that mission, to my work area, to making my program or project get done? And so as we, I think, embraced that in the Air Force, that was part of our thinking process. But it was really brand new to us. We had never imagined that. I know when I worked in industry, it was much more on the contribution side. But I think it was hard for us. So when we initially put the tiers in, I think we put them in so that we kind of had an opportunity to learn and grow and understand what did the system mean. And so some people think those tiers were a little bit of let's take an NH04, a GS14 and a GS15. But really, I think the tier was put in so that we had a stop and consider place. I know that's how we talked about it. When we get to that area, in terms of compensation for your contribution, let's think about what does that mean. And I know that's kind of where we were. I think as we have gained over the last 4 years, knowledge and experience with AcqDemo, really set up some good pay pools and have a better understanding of what it means to think about contributions. We've discovered we don't really need that stop and consider. We're doing stop and considers all the time because we're talking about people's contribution and how the complexity of their job and the scope of their job and their responsibilities. So when we're doing that, that's helping us understand, what should be those compensation points.
So is that focus on the contribution to the mission, is that really the big difference between tiers and the career guides?
Yeah, I think, the career guides is to help you understand, because when we look at a tier and where you fit in a tier, we look at it in terms of what's the responsibility that you have. So what's your decision-making responsibility? What's your scope? How big is your reach on the programs that you're working on and providing leadership to? And what's the complexity? How complex are those programs as you're working them? And that helps us understand where you fit in a tier. And then your compensation has to do with what did you contribute that year? And that can vary, right? There can be a year when there's some extraordinary thing that needs to take place. It doesn't happen every year. It just happens to be, I go back to why, when we hit 2000, right? And we had to go through changing all our computer systems to that. That was an enormous step forward that tons of things had to get changed by a certain date so that we would keep running. That was hopefully a once in a lifetime, right, experience. But that was an enormous contribution point where lots of people really put out tons of level of effort to make that happen. And so that's, that's kind of what we look at. What's that contribution? Now, in other years, you're just going to have your regular contributions. And that's when we're going to look at what's your compensation for a regular contribution.
Okay, so that's kind of the difference between like an enduring compensation or maybe a bonus. Yeah. A bonus being like a one of kind of you really nailed a great project that year and had really high performance, and so you want to reward the employee for that, but it's not necessarily an enduring compensation.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's.
So on the career guides, then, how can an employee use that career guide as to plan out, to map out their career progression, kind of set an endpoint of where they want to be in 10 years or 15 years and then work towards that? Right.
So, I mean, part of what we look at in our career field is, a lot of people come in as an intern or as a lower grade, and they're just learning their technical skill area. And as they're putting that technical skill area in as a journeyman, probably an 11 and a 12, they're figuring out, how do I make that happen and how do I get that done? What are the skills that I need technically to make that done? And then as you move up, for us in our career field, there's really two things that happen. Some people just want to stay on that technical career path. And there are certain areas where we need some pretty high level technical expertise. So let's say you really wanted to be that cloud expert who was going to make a difference in really cloud technology today, how we utilize it, where it's going, and how it works. That could be a technical career path that somebody would follow, or cybersecurity. So let's say as a journeyman, you're an ISSO, right? An information systems security officer. And that's a great place to start. You could move up and become an ISSM, which is an information systems security manager. There's two ways that could go. That could either go and stay as a GS13 in our current system, or it could move and become an NHO 3 or 04, depending on what your track was. But it also depends on the complexity of the job. So as you get greater breadth of what you're looking at, that would increase the complexity of your situation. So if you had one program you were looking at and it wasn't that complex, you're probably going to be an NHO3 or a GS13. If you have gone through that, you've got your ISSM experience, but now you're taking on 25 programs that are all intertwined and very complex, right? And your scope has really increased in terms of who you're going to be interfacing with, the impact you're having on, let's say, the overall AFNet. That could become an NHO4 job. So really, we look at it in terms of your technical area you're working in, but also complexity and scope and responsibility.
So your career field obviously is very complex, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to advance in different paths. What's the best way for an employee to understand and to match their goals with the possibilities that your career field offers?
Yeah, I always tell folks, when they're coming in, and I try to spend time with different people in the office, which is really, where are you going? What do you want to be when you grow up? Help me understand, do you want to manage people and have people execute tasks for you that then, you're bringing together and making sure we're having accomplished? And that could be a branch chief kind of position, a division chief kind of position, or do you want to stay in that very technical area? We have less opportunities in the technical area, and that's very specialized. So you really have to be willing to put in the kind of time to learn those technical skills and really advanced. I mean, we would be looking for subject matter experts as we move up on that technical side. So I think that's a little more challenging, but it isn't impossible for us.
And so I can see the advantage to that, it really puts the employee, it empowers them to choose their own path and to advance as far or as little as they want.
Right. And I encourage employees, meet with your supervisor, explain to them, you know, do an IDP, right? An independent development plan, you know, really think about what do you want, right? As you're moving forward. And that can change over time. It's not like you're locked into that for life. You know, you could look at that and say, as you're moving along, actually, now that I've had that experience, wow, I really like that. I like the management experience, or no, I really love the technical stuff. I can't, you know, I just can't give it up. And that's what you can do as you're moving along, talking to your supervisor, figuring out what training you should take and afford for yourself. I mean, we have so many opportunities in the Air Force. We have AFIT, we have CDE, we have localized trainings, we have DAU. So there's just really a pretty broad range of trainings that folks can do to help them and get those experiences.
So ma'am, really appreciate your time today. So this is, again, our first step in trying to help our employees across the workforce better understand how AcqDemo impacts them and can impact their career, and to empower them to really take control of their careers. So there will be more information coming out in the near future on other topics, including compensation and things of that nature, and pay pool process. But before we move on, I just wanted to see, is there anything that we missed out on, or is there anything that you think we should really draw attention to?
No, I mean, I think, you know, what I'd ask people to do is realize that as we learn more and more about AcqDemo, we will continue to evolve and we'll continue to try to take those lessons learned and build it back into what we do and how we understand that career field and how it fits within AcqDemo. So, you know, be patient. It's, you know, it's an ever learning process. That's what we find out. I always say in IT, right? Every 3 months, we've got something new happening. So, you know, welcome to a rapidly changing world.
All right. Well, thanks again, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you.